I'm discussing the Chinese economy with former Foreign Secretary Vijay Gokhale. And in the context of what's happening at the current moment, where China has posted $1 trillion of trade surplus, but that is something India is aware of, because the trade deficit with China, India has one of the highest as far as India is concerned. But in the list of trade deficits with other countries, perhaps India comes much lower. So, how should India deal with Chinese, practices, trade, and the dependence in many cases that India has on Chinese goods and Chinese raw materials, Vijay?
Yeah. So, I think we first have to look at the statistics, Nitin. What is significant is that between 2019 and 2023, or the fiscal years 2019-20 to 2023-24, India's exports to China were more or less stagnant at 16 to 18 billion dollars. But China's exports to India doubled almost from about 60 billion dollars to well over 100 billion dollars. So, what we are looking at is a massive trade deficit of $103 billion this year, which is still growing. Now, people tend to focus only on the percentage of our trade with China as an overall percentage of that trade, and that is very small because China's total trade volume is $6 trillion and the India China volume is only $140 billion, which means we roughly account for 2% of trade. But what we should really be focusing on is the percentage of the deficit we have with China as a percentage of its overall trade surplus. If you look at that, then the trade deficit of $103 billion is 11% of the Chinese trade surplus of $1 trillion. In other words, for every $10 that China has a trade surplus, India contributes a full $1 to it. And that is a very, very significant number, which we must look at. It is not sustainable, and this is not a commercial issue, it is a political issue. And we must anticipate that the situation will worsen because while exports have grown, Chinese exports to India have grown, imports are constantly slowing down, not just with India but globally, because of the Make in China campaign that President Xi has launched. And therefore, a reset of the trade terms becomes difficult. Now, the problem becomes even more complex because key industries on the Indian side, take textiles for instance, machinery, pharmaceuticals, organic chemicals, electronics, auto components, all of them are dependent in some form or another on Chinese intermediate products or machinery or finished goods or active pharmaceutical ingredients and so on and so forth. So you cannot also drastically crack down on exports there because it will affect your top export performing sectors of the Indian economy. You also have the problem of the price wars that China is engaging in certain sectors like the pharma sector in an effort to hollow out the Indian economy. So you have a problem there as well. And then China is not making any progress in reducing non-tariff barriers, although it repeatedly promises to do so in things like government procurement of IT-enabled services, which is a big Indian export, or phytosanitary restrictions on the export of grains, food, and fruit and vegetables, or regulatory hurdles for, let us say, registering pharmaceutical products and drugs. Now, when all this is combined, it provides a significant challenge for the government because what government has to do is then to pivot away without seriously damaging our own economy. And what is required, in my opinion, is a systematic government support to industry, which is industry specific. You can't target every single industry in the economy. Number two, it has to be policy based. It cannot be a one-off event. And thirdly, it has to be financially sustainable. If you want companies to buy to go to alternative sources where the same
Sources.
equipment is available, and that might cost 1.5 to 2 times what China is offering because China is engaging in price wars, government has to find some way of supporting our industry so that the pain is not borne by Indian business alone, but also by the government. So I would say we are facing a formidable challenge, but it is necessary for Indians to recognize how much we are contributing to China's trade surplus. That must be the starting point from which a political consensus and a consensus with business must be built to make a fundamental pivot away from the Chinese economy.